welcome back for episode 18 of our KSP Let's Play. It's going to be a pretty short episode because all we're going to do is round out this guy to 2 million so we can finally launch our Minmus Base. And I think I found a way to do it. I came in here and there was another mission for a rescue, this Billy Bob here in low Kerbin orbit. So we now have a rescue mission to get a Kerbal from low Kerbin orbit, and we also have a rescue to get one from low Mun orbit. However, the Mun one, we actually have to bring the craft back, as well as the Kerbal. And we still have this science data from space around Kerbin. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and rescue both of these guys in one vessel. So we'll go up to Kerbin low orbit, and we'll grab him, and then I'll just chuck his craft into a re-entry so that it blows up. And then we will head on out to the Mun and attempt to grab that guy as well as his craft and then bring everything back to Kerbin. So that is our game plan, and if I did the math right, it won't quite put us at 2 mil, but it'll put us really close, probably close enough that I should be able to just do the mission afterwards, do the Minmus Base launch, whatever, in the next episode. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and do this mission, but because we've already done a lot of rescues, I'm probably just going to hypercut it and touch on the keynotes here. So, I shall see you out on the launch pad. Right, so this is pretty much a rehash of what we've done before. So you can see here we're out on the launch pad, and I did build a new craft for this. So I just time warped until the target, the guy in Kerbin orbit, is 400 kilometers away. And once we finally had him nice and close, we launched. And I'm going to be using an SSTO launcher again, so once we get up to orbit, we are going to ditch the launcher and bring it back down to KSP and recover it. Otherwise, not a lot. It was pretty unspectacular launch. We were able to get up. Unfortunately, it's nighttime, so the lighting isn't that great, but I didn't do it in one launch. I actually did it in, one burn. I did it in two. So you can see here we're starting our gravity turn, and we're gonna, once we get up above 50 kilometers, we're gonna punch the gas and try and get into most of our orbit. And because we timed out the launch, I should be able to, on the second burn, set up a really nice intercept with our target. And I still don't actually know what vessel he's in, but we'll find out shortly. So you can see here we cut the engines, and I've got a pretty good trajectory, and we're just quickly checking, and my orbit burn to get orbit capture is going to give us a nice close intercept. I think it was like somewhere between 2 and 5 kilometers or something like that. So we're just pretty much just waiting until we can fire our engines again to both get orbit and set our trajectory towards the stranded cosmonaut, which was Billy Bob, I think, I thought was a pretty hilarious name. I'm kind of excited actually to have Billy Bob as a Kerbal. And I also, at one point, I did also check the mission control center, and after I got these two Kerbals, it puts us at 12 of 12 Kerbals, so I am actually going to have to upgrade the astronaut complex pretty quick here, so that we can actually get more Kerbals if we need. You see there, I just deployed the solar panels, and we're going to ditch our launcher here, and pull away and just leave him in orbit. I'm going to bring it down after I do my Mun trajectory burn. So from here, we're just going to hit our time warp and flip around the planet here. Whee! And I cut out all the approach stuff, but you can see here we're coming in on a nice clean approach, and once again it's the nighttime, which is really annoying. But luckily this time I actually put lights on the front of the vessel, and I do have RCS, so once I flip around here you'll actually be able to see we are apparently trying to capture a science lab. So I'm really glad that the Mun is the one where we have to actually bring the craft down and not this guy. And because we are just throwing it, I don't need to hit it perfectly square, but I did kind of come in so that we're hitting on the end just as practice and just because I found it more fun. So you can see here we got a nice clean clunk, and we have captured the science lab. So we can transfer our Billy Bob over. And I also took, and we still had that mission to take a science experiment, so I quickly did that as well. So now we're just going to flip around, and I'm going to do a bit of a break burn here. I just fast forwarded to the day so you can kind of see better. So we're going to fire our engines and slow down a bit, and this way, once I release this guy, it'll burn up. So you can see here I'm kicking it off, and then we're going to spin back around and fire our engines again to get back into orbit. And I'll likely have to come back up and actually manually blow that guy up, but he is on a return trajectory now, so at least there's no space trash. And now it's just a matter of plotting our Mun trajectory, which is pretty much the exact same thing I've always done. So just kind of put it at the 2 o'clock position and launched out. So we're going to come in on the right side of the Mun, and with a little bit of tweaking, we have a nice clean, I think the guy was at like 12 kilometers or something like that. So the only kicker here is once we actually get out to Mun, I have no way of really knowing where in the orbit he's going to be. So we may have to do a few orbits to actually catch up to him. But I have a plan for that, which we'll get into in a minute here. So I just time warped us around the planet, and we're going to fire our burn eventually here. There we go. So we are now eventually, as the engines slowly burn. Man, this is at 4 times speed and it's still taking forever. But anyway, so now we have our Mun trajectory, and we're going to flip over to our SSTO, which is still quite far from KSC, so I just quickly plotted a return trajectory and then hit fast forward to spin us around. And once again, it's nighttime. I don't know why this mission decided that every single important piece should be in night, but whatever. So you can see we're coming up on our burn here. I'm just kind of taking a best stab at this. I'm still kind of crappy at actually hitting KSC perfect, but I can at least get close, and that's good enough for me. So we did our burn, and now we are coming down into the atmosphere. And once again, I'm going to bring it in head first. And actually, the decoupler on the front is going to essentially kind of act like a heat shield. It is going to explode, which you'll see in a few seconds here. But it takes the brunt of the heat on the re-entry here. And then after it explodes, the craft is going to go all over the place. So there you can see it finally blew up. And now we're going to start flipping around. But I don't know. It seems to work. It burns off a lot of speed when it does that, and nothing else explodes, and I really don't care about the decoupler, so whatever, it works. So you can see where the sun came up, which was kind of nice, and we're going to undershoot KSC a bit, but we're at least going to clear the mountains and come down in the grasslands to the west of KSC. So we deployed our drogue chutes and then all our main parachutes, and I also put landing gear on it in case we had to land on the actual land. So you can see we've coming down nice and slow-ish, and the sun is now setting again, and we can recover the vessel. Where we once again hit time warp so that we would just fling ourselves out to the Mun SOI, and then time warped again just so we were getting a little closer to our break burn. And you can see we're quite a distance away from our target. So my plan here was to, instead of going into a spherical orbit, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go into an elliptical orbit, and I'm going to keep where I'm doing my burn at the same altitude as our target. However, on the opposite side, our AP, I'm going to put significantly higher than where he is, so that we essentially slow down a significant chunk, and he has time to catch up to us in less orbits. If we just went into a spherical orbit, it would take absolutely forever for him to catch up to us, so this was kind of my big plan to try and minimize the amount of orbits I would have to do. And because it's such a significant difference in the two orbits, I think I was at like 60 kilometers or something. He was only at 10. It should shave off a significant chunk of that 320 kilometers after we do an orbit, because we're going to be going a heck of a lot slower than he is, and he'll have time to catch up to us. So you can see here we just hit the fast forward again and flipped around and did our orbit. And I didn't know the exact math, so I was just kind of like cowboying it here. But you can see as we passed our intercept, it dropped from 300 kilometers down to 100. So what I did is I did a bit of a break burn and brought our AP down quite a bit, because if we were to essentially do another orbit, we would overshoot and he would go flying past us. So by bringing it back down, it adjusted our separation to about 140 kilometers, but it means that he won't pass us. He's gonna just keep catching up with us here. So we did another orbit, and Once we passed the intercept, it flipped again, and this time it was at 70 kilometers. But by doing another brake burn, I was actually able to bring that all the way down to 0.1 kilometers, which gives us a perfect intercept. So we only need to do 3 orbits to actually make up that 320 kilometers, which is kind of nice. So we flipped around the planet again here, and we did have a nice clean 0.1 kilometer intercept, but because it was kind of on the night side, I wanted to delay when we actually intercepted with him. So I've kind of, you can see here, I'm just basically pushing our intercept forward so that it's over on the day side, as well as just trying to essentially slowly bring our orbits down to matching so that we come directly at him. Because we are still in a significantly different orbit than he is. So as we approach, we're just correcting that down so that we match his orbit, as well as pushing that intercept over into the day side. And I'm doing this all with RCS at this point. So we finally have our nice clean 0.1 intercept, and at this point we're just going cowboy manual, where we're just going to try and keep ourselves lined up so we come directly at him, and preferably not super fast so that we don't slam into him. But all went well, and you can see we are approaching the target here, and luckily this time it's just a command pod, which is, considering we have to take it all the way back to Kerbin, is a lot nicer. So basically at this point I do want to grab this guy square, because we are going to have to do a re-entry with him, and I prefer to keep the mass kind of center. So you can see I'm just kind of adjusting ourselves so that we can grab him from the back of the command pod, and ideally I'm going to try and grab him as square as possible here. And we are again doing this all with RCS and the claw. So you can see, because I don't have an easy way to target this guy, I'm having to kind of flip the camera back and forth to keep our X and Y coordinates lined up, like basically our left and right drift and our up and down drift, so that I can hit this guy perfectly square. And it's kind of a pain in the butt, but as long as you come in slow, it's actually not that bad. And you can just, as you can see, I'm just flipping the camera back and forth to see the left and right and the up and down. And we have capture. And he's a little bit off, but it was pretty much square, or square enough anyway. So we can transfer our Kerbin over to our MK3 pod, and we are ready to head back to Kerbin. So I'm going to just quickly plot out a return trajectory, and we are going to do a free return. I am going to have some extra fuel, which I will burn once we get to Kerbin, but for the most part we are just doing a straight up free return. Setting our AP, I guess, to 30 kilometers, so we're going to hit Kerbin at a 30 kilometer, which will be enough to slow us down and bring us down. And now it's just a matter of fast forwarding again. So you can see Kerbin rising out there as we go shooting out, and I try to keep up. There's our burn. So with a little bit of tweaking, we got it down to 30 kilometers. And now we can just fast forward until we get to Kerbin. So we're out of the SOI now and headed back. And it looks like once again we're going to be hitting the night side, because I don't know, this mission's cursed and it wants to do everything at night. So we came down here, and I waited until right when I hit the atmosphere to do my burn, just so I wouldn't have to play around with trying not to mess with the altitude that we're going to hit the planet at. So I think in a second here I'm gonna, yeah, there we go. So I'm firing off the last of our fuel, and then we're going to ditch our engine. And I forgot to pull in our solar panels as we hit re-entry, but I got them in quick enough that it didn't burn up, luckily. And other than that, the re-entry was pretty insignificant. Yeah, this part of the re-entry was pretty insignificant, but you'll see in a second here I did actually run into a problem that was totally my fault, and I hadn't tested this guy, so I didn't foresee this happening, although I should have. So you can see here we've got through the burn part, and when I deployed the parachutes, I had positioned them really poorly, so we actually flipped around the wrong way, and I had to, as you can see, I'm desperately trying to flip us back around so that we land on our butt, and I was able to essentially get it so that it flipped around, and then I was able to lock and use SAS to keep us oriented that way. And we also landed on a bit of a hill, but otherwise we can just recover it. Right, so we are back from our mission, and we got like 97% of our launcher back and like 56% of our payload, which actually put us over 2 million. Yay! So it looks like I don't actually have to do any more money farming. We should be good to now launch the Minmus Base. What do we got in here though? Science data from around Minmus. We can definitely get that, because we're going to be sending a base there. What about the rest of these? Yeah, the rest are kind of crap. So, coal bins. I think we will leave it there for this episode. And next episode, finally, I swear, we are going to launch the Minmus Base. So until then, ta-ta!